Hello everyone, welcome to our discussion session of PDA using C. I'm sure you people are having fun doing the assignments and watching the videos. There are of course a few concerns that people have been raising from long. Amit, please mute your mic because the sound is being picked by mic and there is echoing.
I'm sure you people are having fun doing the assignments and watching the videos. Concerns that Amit, please mute your mic because the sound is.
Simran, you to mute your mic, okay? All right, it will disturb everyone in case you have not muted your mic. When you're talking, please be aware that your mic is muted and then you start talking. Simran, Nambit, let's start. Okay, so yeah, all of you. So there were a few concerns that you people had, and I am very well aware of those concerns. One is your, one is that of your programming assignments and the portal for it. I understand that the portal is, although very robust and nice, it is not very straightforward for anyone to, let's say, see what is test and what is test, what is the test part and what is the submission part. We are working on it and we'll ensure that it will be easy an experience for you people to submit your assignments. So especially the programming assignment, there's a problem. There are two different interfaces. Of course, we have put the details on FAQ, but then it is not so straightforward that you can pick up from the FAQ and then do it. But then I strongly suggest that you read and reread the FAQ part where details are given as to how to submit your assignments. Okay, that said, we will try to ensure that we post a video tutorial on how to submit your assignments. Okay, that will make it very clear for you people. That's with the assignment. And secondly, you people must note that the forum has a very high traffic and there are hundreds of mails sent and received every day. And it is hard for all of you to take a look at all the mail threads, right? So what we will do from tomorrow onwards is we will have a very dynamic FAQ session, frequently asked questions section on the NPTEL website course homepage, from where you people can take a look if your question is already being answered. Okay, I'll give you a typical example. First week of the course, you all were asking this question on where are the videos? We are unable to see the videos. So you had to click on the preview link and then look at the left-hand side of your web page, which many of you couldn't do it. I understand. See, if more than a dozen people have a problem, there's a problem there, correct? Okay, so we'll ensure that all these things are put on FAQ and you go and search the FAQ. And in case it is not answered on FAQ, then you can go ahead and post a question on the forum. Also, please ensure that you people discuss with each other on forum. For example, if a question is asked by a person, another person can answer it on the forum, right? You did not wait for the TA. That way you guys can help each other and reduce the workload on TA. And TAs, I have seen, they have been putting the same answer for these frequently asked questions many a times, and it gets very repetitive for them. So that's with the portal. Firstly, I told you about the portal for submissions. We are working on it. We'll get back to you on a good video tutorial. Secondly, the FAQ section, please refer to it before posting your questions. And third point is about the content itself. The videos are very, very good, as you have seen, but still some people have concerns over the topics being slightly advanced. By the way, I'm not seeing your scrolling messages right now. I will go ahead with a couple of more points and then take a look at your messages. So if you're typing something on the chat window, it is not visible for me for the next 5 minutes. I'll tell you when to start typing on the chat window, and I'll see the chat window and then answer those questions later. So give me just 5 minutes time. Okay, I was in the third point. First being your assignment submission, second being your FAQ, third being the level of the course. I realized that the level is slightly on the higher level. It's not a basic course in programming. Although we start with C as a language, we quickly go ahead and discuss search, sorting, and advanced data structures. The motive of the course was to enable a person to become quickly employable in the sense, one of the major topics that an interviewer would want you to know, let's say in computer science, is this subject, data structures using C. All right, that's the motive behind the course. Please note, this is not a first course. We expect that you know some amount of programming, although the portal says we don't need any prerequisites. It's a 200 level course meant for second year BTech students. That also we mentioned. For second year, you don't have to know anything. But we assume that in your first year, you have undergone some amount of programming and you're sort of well aware with what is what. Okay, so that's with the level of the course. And I understand that some topics are slightly on the difficult side. So we will try to see if we can give you some nice pointers to ensure that you understand these advanced concepts. For example, I see day in and day out, lately at least, people asking about pointers, right? If I were you, what I would do is I would Google a whole lot. I would take a look at other videos also, because see, this is not the be of all and of all, the videos that we offer as part of this course. There could be one way of teaching that may not suit you. Maybe you can use some supplementary videos from outside. There are so many videos out there. Like, for example, you read one textbook, you don't understand, you refer to many textbooks. I strongly advise that you use several supplements. For example, something as simple as pointers has a whole lot of online videos and texts available. Maybe you should refer to it. Okay. Yeah, so the major 3 points of discussion today, I'll go one by one, but before that, I would like to tell you a few do's and don'ts so that we can have a very good discussion session. I would request you all not to ask a very specialized question. For example, sir, please explain the notion of time complexity in detail. Now, this is a very vague question, which I cannot do justice in this 1 hour, because 90% of the people here may or may not know about time complexity. I'll be boring them. Okay, time is limited. It's just 1 hour. So a thumb rule is that whatever you can ask as a question on the forum, please don't ask that question here. All right. So I sent out a theme for all of you on what will be the discussion today. We'll stick to the theme as the first pilot project that we are carrying out on discussing with you all. Let's go step by step. This week, we'll only discuss these 3 points that I sent you. Maybe next week onwards, we will be more specialized on, let's say, we'll pick a topic and then discuss it, provided that topic is of interest to all of you. All right? Okay. Perfect. So, just a moment. Okay. All right. So, the theme was, first point is, we actually asked you people to give us some questions. I got a lot of nice questions. A frequently asked question here, which requires me addressing, is the following. I'm finding it very difficult to program. When I'm programming, I'm seeing a whole lot of errors. How do I improve? Now, so this is like, let's say, if you start any sports for that matter, any sport, be it cricket, football, baseball, basketball, it's going to be hard for you in the beginning. Be it even bicycling, something as simple as two-wheeler bicycling, you will realize that it is actually very difficult. You start even wondering how to balance a two-wheeler bicycle. But with time, you realize that it is into your muscle memory. You don't know how, but you can actually bicycle. You don't know how to balance, but you tend to bicycle really, really well. Same holds good with swimming. It's all a matter of practice, and it's a whole lot of practice. By practice, I mean a lot of man hours. Programming comes only by trial and error. The linear teaching, let's say, if I teach you for 2 full hours and I teach you a whole lot of stuff about this is what this does, this is what this does, it actually doesn't help much. Provided you supplement it with your own, let's say, programming practice, where you go back home, open the compiler, and start typing some of the basic things. And my suggestion is, don't try to only solve the questions that we ask you to solve. Try making up your own questions and then try solving it. For example, something as simple as take hello world program. Of course, we all know that. Apart from that, taking two numbers and then adding them and then displaying them. And let's say taking n number of numbers and then adding them, and taking a string and then reversing the string, right? All these things are, let's say, taking a string as an array and then reversing it. Forget about pointers, a simple array and then reversing it. These are all good challenges that your mind can create, rather the question created by your mind and you answer it. Now, that's the first step towards learning good programming. And the basic thing is read the book. The popular gyan that people give you is read the book thoroughly, be very good at the syntax and things like that, and then go ahead and then type. It really doesn't work that way. Try writing half a page snippets and start off from there and try step by step. Don't try to go to a very hard problem. Let's say matrix multiplication or matrix inverse is very hard program to write. But something as simple as I rightly told you, adding n numbers, reversing a string while the input is an array is all fun to do stuff, and it happens very slowly. It requires a whole lot of patience. Programming is all about staying patient and knowing that you are on some step and you should only go to the next step to reach the final destination, which is like programming any given question. Okay. My second tip to you all is, my first tip is a lot of practice. Of course, goes without saying, sounds like it's very obvious, but many people don't get it. They don't know why they are not doing well. Basically, it's lack of practice, and practicing is not about taking questions from the internet or from your friends. You should create your own questions and try to answer it. Make it really simple in the beginning and go step by step. As and always, you can refer to online stuff for more questions. Okay, my second tip is you should not try programming the moment you have a question. Now that's very important. Take a pause and then think about it. Most of your logic should happen over a pen and paper, rather a pencil and paper with an eraser if possible, right? You should write what is called a flowchart and a pseudocode, and then try to understand the logic, and then go ahead and then type. Don't try to figure out the logic using the keyboard. Okay, that's really a huge mistake, frequently made mistakes by many of you people. Okay, take a pencil, paper, try to understand the logic and go ahead and then code it next. Okay, and there is something called modular programming where in programming, you should break your problem into small modules, okay, and then integrate them. Maybe in functions you would have seen already. If not, you will see very soon how we can use functions to break our big program into smaller chunks and then test whether the function is doing what it's supposed to do and finally integrate it. Okay, that's my second most important tip. And third point that I wanted to highlight upon is why study this subject and why C? Many of you have asked this brilliant question. Why not Python? Why not, let's say, MATLAB, which is so easy to use? We need not worry a lot about syntax and declarations of variables and things like that, right? Why use C? So I'll give you a nice example. Assume I'm an engineer. I'm a civil engineer. And I need to construct a big house, a big mansion. I can work at one level. I can bring some 50 laborers and then say, help me with a mansion. This is the design period. But the question is, should I also have some knowledge about the bricks being used, the cement being used, and the way my roofing is being done, right? And how exactly I'm laying the foundation. Should I understand at the level of what kind of stones are being used for the foundation? What kind of bricks are being used? How are they manufactured? How robust are they if there's an earthquake, correct? We need to probably look at all these things, right? Not just look at, get 50 laborers who can do all these things, give them some bricks and cement and other raw materials, and they will construct. C is one language. I'm just giving you an analogy. C is one language where you may have to look at it at the level of bricks and cements, right? And Python on the other end is called a scripting language where a lot of things are hidden from you. Firstly, you're a happy person because you need not worry about the details. But then at the same time, you're an unhappy person because you are not allowed to access the details. For example, in C, you have pointers. right? In a very higher level scripting language. C is also a higher level language, but then it's not a scripting language. It's not as good as, let's say, as easy as PHP, JavaScript, or let's say Python. In Python, you don't have to worry about anything. You just go ahead and then start using variables, but at the same time, you don't get access to a whole lot of machine level details. And it is understood that for a beginner, you not only should learn programming, you also should get a hang of what is computation in general. And C is known to help you understand what is computation at a level deeper than, let's say, what Python offers for you. So it is very important that an interviewer, your job, your employer will expect you to know good amount of C, not just C. He should know, you should probably give him that confidence that you understand what is programming, and you can think through a logic and then write a snippet of code. And you can also sort of understand some of the standard programming techniques, such as sorting, searching, a whole lot of data structures, let's say graph traversals, graph-based data structures, and things like that, so on and so forth, right? So your employer will expect you to know all these things, and you better start from what is programming to what is the C all about. Let me understand some basics of C, and then let me implement some of the standard programming things on C, right? And any student who is really good at programming data structures and, let's say, one programming language, let's say C, is a very trainable person. By that I mean, I don't expect him to know Java, because if he has done good amount of C and he understands data structures, he can probably pick up the language that I want him to pick up later in my industry, right? In my company. So that's the whole idea behind why we expect you to know C and data structures. Okay, so now it's time for me to take some questions. Please go ahead, type your questions. Most of your questions I have answered already. The questions that you people have posed on the Google form. Now let me take more questions from the chat window. Okay, please be very specific. I request you people not to ask specialized questions. For example, you have asked this question, what is the difference between void main and int main? I mean, a simple Google will tell you a clear-cut answer for it. Okay, in some compilers, you need to put int main. If you know this concept of argc, argv, you need to use int, not only int main, and inside main also you can pass parameters. These are all very specialized questions. If I start discussing them, it basically will get boring to for most of the people. And it's also not a good idea to discuss specifics in a chat session like this. So ask me your general question, but be specific about what is your question. Okay, don't throw in too many details. So let me take the first question. Prayash Das says, what will be the question pattern in the certification examination? I think I will address it right now, and we will not talk about assignments and exams. Probably we should be talking on the forum, not here. Okay, so if you are solving your assignments, the style will be very similar. Okay, that's all we can tell you right now. Assignments and exams will more or less have the same kind of difficulty level. Okay, yeah. Data structures in VLSI design. I do not know of VLSI design, so I cannot comment on it, but I have a very general idea about it. So I would say any place where you use programming, I mean, you're typing a set of instructions to achieve something. Data structures are important because, as I told you, data structures is the cement, the brick of a building, right? Although you can outsource these things to someone else and only work at a higher level, it is important for you to understand bricks and cements. Okay. Okay, Rohit Agarwal, want to ask, how is this course different from PDA course by Naveen Garg sir? Like, should I do this course if I have done the course by Naveen Garg sir? Rohit Agarwal, so the point is, this is a course that is another course. I have watched, of course, Professor Naveen Garg's data structures course. It's an amazing course. Of course, you should watch that too. But the point is, your exams will be based on our course. You may end up seeing some other course which may not cover the topics that we have covered, or might cover something more than what we have covered. So every week you have assignment and exams, right? And the final exam. So the questions will come from these topics that we are covering here. So you may have to concentrate mainly on this. And of course, you can supplement these lectures by any other lecture, let's say on Coursera, edX, or whatever you like it. Okay. All right, more questions? Please type your question. Let me see. No, so we are not going to take any more of assignment or exam related questions. Please let us have a chat that interests everyone. It is boring to talk. At least I find it boring to talk about assignments and exams, where we've actually posted a whole lot of it on the course homepage about assignments and exams. So please post your question on the forum if you have anything to do with anything to ask about exam and assignments. So Kishle Kumar says C language is helpful for big company like product-based company. Okay, so to the best of what I know, I have had some industry experience. I also have academic experience, and I have a whole lot of students with whom I keep talking. The point, and I even spoken to recruiters. What recruiters expect is the following: do you know a programming language really well? Something like C. If you know C, you have understood the internals of, let's say, a higher level programming language, and you can probably do well as a programmer. Have you understood good amount of data structures? Is your logical thinking ability good? If you are good at on all these 3 dimensions, you can probably be a very good programmer or a developer. So it is not that you learn C here and you'll be learning C in the industry as well. You might, it's just a preparedness. If you can run well, maybe you can be a good sportsman. The analogy is that. So if you run well, it doesn't mean that the sports that you're going to get into is also about running. You probably can be a good football player if you have good stamina, right? Stamina is different from the actual application. So C is like that. If you know good amount of C and data structures, probably can pick up anything. Okay. Okay, so I am not going to, I think we should call it a discussion on, is C programming helpful here? Is C programming helpful for modern app development, etc.? So as I told you clearly, it's a very nice rule that recruiters might use to recruit you. If you're good at C, you're good at anything. Okay, so what is OOPS, says Rajarshi Kundu. Sir, is the data structure of C programming different than OOPS languages like Java? In fact, this course covers object-oriented programs as well. No, so data structure of C is slightly different from OOPS concept. I mean, OOPS is not there in C, as you know. OOPS is there in C++, which is built over C. People have realized that C as a language is powerful, it's amazing, but something that is programmers mind friendly is a language like Java or C++, where when you create what is called an object, let's say you're writing a piece of code for, let's say, game programming, and there's an object there called a wall, and wall has some properties, and you want to code these properties. It is good for you to see the wall as an object. So you have some ways in which you can do that in a programming language like C++ stroke Java stroke any other language per se except C. But in C, this is not possible. At least as of now, I don't know of OOPS possibility in C. C++ is all about C plus OOPS possibility. You will see more of it in the videos in this very course. Okay. Okay. Sir, please tell in simple ways. I am trying my level best to make it simple, Dhyaneshwar. I'll try to be more simple, maybe. Internships, will take that later. Rohit Agarwal, should I start programming apart from the, how should I start programming apart from the assignments? Rohit Agarwal says, how should I start programming apart from the assignments? There's a lot of online portals where you can go and take up programming challenges. You should basically be doing that. But then getting a good hang over a programming language, let's say C, starts with, as I told you, coming out with your own questions and trying to answer them, because the question you create will be reasonably simple, while the question that you see online might be very complicated. As a first phase, I would suggest that you make your own questions and try answering them. Very, very basic questions. For example, I'll tell you what I would do when I was learning programming when I was of your age, roughly in my late teens. What I would do is I would take a puzzle book. I took Shakuntala Devi's book and tried seeing if I can write a piece of code to solve those puzzles. For example, one of my favorite things was magic squares. You have magic squares, right? Some n cross n board, and you should put numbers so that each side adds up to the same number. Now, I found it very fascinating when I saw this puzzle, and I tried writing a piece of code for it, and it was fun for me to see that a computer can solve my problem, which I find it difficult to solve. And then a simple 6x6 Sudoku, you should be able to try to solve it using programming. Anyway, a good challenge that you all can take up is to solve a 2x2x2 Rubik's Cube, not 3x3x3. That's very difficult. A 2x2x2 Rubik's Cube, you can try solving it with a piece of code in C. It's fun to solve it, and you can actually solve it. Okay, that's how you should be able to probably proceed. It's fun to do it this way. Okay, let me take more questions. You people are really fast. I was with Rohit Agarwal, and then Amit Majumdar says, what book is good? Okay, so I think I should talk about the textbook, and listen to me very carefully here. It's in my little experience that these days, let's say in 2018, I don't think programming should be learned from a book. I have my reasons for it. Back then, we didn't have internet. We didn't have any source where we would get to know the syntax. The only two things to our rescue was one being a book, second one being an online, what is the help, F1 we used to call it. You hit on F1 on a IDE, you would get help. So these were the only two things. But today you have a whole lot of online references. So what I do, and what I would suggest you to do, is to open a Google document. You know what that means. Let's say an MS Word document. And as and when you learn new things, new way of doing something, you should make a note of it there. This will be your reference library. Okay. And you should, for example, you learned something about pointers today. Okay. Or you learned something about, let's say, macros today, or you learned something about, I was talking about argc, argv, something more about the main function you learned today. What you do is, whatever you have learned, you should type it in this document and keep it safely with you. Okay, right? As opposed to referring to a book and calling that your Bible and referring to it whenever you need, I think that era is long gone. It doesn't work well that way. So a good thing that you can do is to maintain a separate document, either a book, your own book, or an online document, where as and when you learn, you make a note of it. This syntax is used for so and so. This helps me do this. For example, if you're displaying the address of a pointer, you should put %p. Now, you wouldn't know it is %p. %d is for integers, %p is for pointers, you wouldn't know, correct? %f is to make your output look good, right? Format your output. You may not know how it works. Maybe it is good for you to make a note of all these things in a book as and when you come across a concept. And please look it up and make notes. This seems to be a good way to do it, because there is no nice book which can teach programming. Even if there is a book, there are in fact loads out there in the market. I wouldn't say it is very effective today, given the internet era, YouTube era, and Stack Overflow era. You pose a question there, there is an answer in no time. Okay, this is a very good question which I had to address. Good that you asked me. Okay, Haricharan Reddy, sir, you posted a link why array numbering starts from 0 instead of 1, but I can't understand reason. Why, can you explain? I don't know about the link that you're talking about, but in general, array was not from 1. If I'm not wrong, it started with C only. Let's say I have programmed in Pascal some 20 years ago, and it was not required that we start from 0. Right? So Pascal was a language where it started with 1. I hope I am right here, because I remember, as far as I remember, Pascal there were arrays, and you would start with A of 1, A of 2. They're not A of 0, unlike C. It's just a programmer's preference. It's also about how your mind works. So it's easy for us to see the first element of as A of 0, then A of 1, and there is a lot more to it than just this. If you learn pointers, then you will realize the importance of A of 0, A of 1. Okay, it can get a little technical if I start explaining this. I'll leave it here, but then it's like this. A of 0 is A points to the beginning of the memory. A of 1 is A of 1 points to the beginning of the memory plus 1 memory unit. Okay, so if you know arrays and pointers and the link between them, you will see what I'm saying. A of I is basically wherever A is pointing to and I units away from it. Okay, so I still would say we can manage with the array starting from number 1, but then I'm so used to it right now that I would want it from 0. Technical reason probably is this, that with the view of pointers, if you see, you will realize that it's helpful to start from 0 than 1. Okay. I think most of these things I have addressed. If you want, what I'll do is I'll quickly go to the latest question. If the first question that you people ask, NPTEL certificate, I am not going to answer that. Kisle Kumar, maybe we should ask something else that's interesting to all of us. Nagesh Singh says, questions are theoretical or practical? I actually don't understand that question too. Maybe you should rephrase your question. Nagesh Singh asks, what type of question will be asked in interview for data structure? Again, there are no hard and fast rules. There are a lot of books out there where you can refer, which talks about some of the most frequently asked interview questions. But then if I come there as an interviewer interviewing you, I will ask my favorite topics in data structures. So probably I'll ask you, what's a linked list? And you will tell me what's a linked list. And but then I'll ask you, what's a doubly linked list? And you will go on answering it. And then I'll say, give me an application of doubly linked linked list. And then you will say so and so and so. It is used in, let's say, graph data structure. And then I'll pick on the graph data structure and then ask you more questions. So all I'm trying to say is it's very individualistic. There's no hard and fast rules on how a interviewer will be asking you questions. It is important for you to be thorough with all the basic concepts, period. And interviewer should basically expect you to know these basic concepts. So if you do a very bottom-up approach, rather a top-down approach of what they might ask, and you start preparing, it is both boring and inefficient. I think you should concentrate on basics and then try to pick some questions here and there and then try to solve them. That's the best way out than thinking about how the interviewer's mind works and things like that. Okay, next question. This is a good, interesting question. Nagesh Singh, as an interviewer, will you ask me to code for linked list? Yes, I might ask you to code a linked list and then show it to me. Although I know it's very easy question, I would not ask you something as simple as that. I'm sure most of you who have undergone this course would be able to do a lot more than just implementing a linked list. Yeah, it depends on the interviewer. And I would say if you solve all the assignment questions that we are giving and finish the course content, you will be in a very, very good position to answer almost 90% of the typical questions that people might expect you to answer in an interview. Okay. Rajarshri says, sir, is C programming required for big data science? See, I have to tell you people, I have to give you this fun advice. See, we must sort of stop talking about at your level when you're learning what is C. We should not get to the notions of machine learning, data science, big data, and stuff like that. They're all big buzzwords that you will realize later what it's all about. But as of now, your motive should only be looking at C. And when you look at machine learning or data science or big data or whatever you call it, you will see the requirement of knowing C in those places. So right now it's too early and too premature a question for you to ask or me to answer, although I understand they're all the employers' buzzwords, so you should be knowing something about it. Good to read an article or two about it. But right now, I would suggest that you people should learn one piece of advice. If there's one take-home message from our talking today, it should be this. Please listen carefully. You should learn C as a language, data structures as a subject in its own right. What do I mean by this? You should not over ask this question on what is the use, how exactly it is used right now. Why? I'll give you an example. Imagine a kid, a 3-year-old kid, starts questioning a whole lot about why am I learning A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, X, Y, Z? And then I say, it's useful for CAT, cat, DOG, dog. And the kid will ask, why should I learn CAT, cat, DOG, dog? And I'll say, it is useful for you to make English statements. The kid will say, I'm already making English statements. I can talk in English. Why do I need to learn English the ABCD way? Now, you see, it's very hard to address these questions. It is best to leave it to the kid to explore in the next few years what ABCD is going to be, where exactly it will be applied in. Although I would say ABCD can be used to converse, right? And it can also be used to read Shakespeare or Charles Dickens, right? So we should not over question the importance of a basic subject like data structures and C. You guys should read it in its own right. Okay, it's fun to understand C as a programming language. It is great to study data structures. You will very soon realize that these ABCs of programming will be very handy in almost all walks of computing that you will come across. Okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so Pradyumna Chaturvedi is asking a nice question. He says, is the logic in programming important, or learning the number of languages or other learning more? Okay, so this is a very nice question with a very obvious answer. Okay, so the question is logic important or learning more languages important? Let me ask you a question now. Do you think as a 5-year-old kid, a kid should concentrate on learning many languages, or should learn one language very well? And then once the language that he has learned, he has good mastery over, he can concentrate on learning more languages. You obviously will say it's the latter. A 5-year-old kid, which you are equivalent to as a beginner, should concentrate on learning C really, really well, understand what is logical thinking, how to understand programming language, what's a programming language, how can that be used to do something, let's say achieve a few, whatever. You're given a question, how do you answer it using this programming language, and gain good mastery over, on one side, everything about a programming language, on other side, your applicability of whatever you have learned in situations such as, go ahead and tell me how you can take a file and read through it and tell me all the prepositions that you encounter, right? If I ask you a concrete question like this, you should be able to answer it using a programming language. So my tip to you would be, Pradyumna Chaturvedi, to answer Pradyumna's question, would be to learn logic really, really well, to understand data structures. And programming language these days, let me tell you, it takes just a few hours, or even, let's just say, less than a week's time to pick up any language. To achieve mastery, it takes some time, but that's not required today, right? If you're a good programmer in general, if your logic is good, picking up a language and trying to implement your logic there is not very, very difficult. Okay, it comes with time. But logic, it's best learned when you're young, when you are a teenager. What is logic? How does a for loop, if loop, while loop work? What is this notion of data structures? Why do I need it? What is it all about? It's best learned in your 20s or late 20s maximum, right? After that, you can pick up any language you want. I have known people who have picked up languages at 65, who are programmers all their life. A new programming language they would pick up. For example, I picked up Python some 10 years back. When I was, let's say, in my mid-20s, because I was good at C. I was good at C++. I knew Java. Python was nothing for me. I think I took some 2 to 3 hours to understand how it works, and I was starting to program in Python. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about you, and you will have the same experience if you learn one language, and moving to some other language will be very straightforward and easy if you know what is logical thinking and how to use it. Okay, let me take another question. Okay, so I must really warn you people, competitive programming, placement-oriented questions, more programming, different programming languages, data science, machine learning, blah, blah, blah. So we should limit ourselves from thinking about these things at this level. Competitive programming comes once a kid stops crawling and starts walking. I repeat. So now you're in the crawling stage. As a kid, you are walking on 4 legs. You should stand up, walk slowly, and then walk fast, and then jog slowly, and then jog fast, and then run, and then sprint, and then you can think of taking part in adventurous games. So competitive programming is pretty far. Understand what is C as a language. Understand what is how programming could be so much fun. Understand what is data structures. And once you are done, you graduate. Then you can throw your graduate hat up and then go out and then do competitive programming and whatnot. So I very frequently I have observed this in many students. In my little experience of teaching for the past, let's say, 14 years, I see this very rare kind of, I'm sorry to say this, it's sort of a disease in many of us where we say, I want to be the best in programming, while we don't even make an attempt to learn the basics to begin with. When we are learning the basics, we should not think of the end result in mind. You should not try to be a Michael Schumacher when you're trying to hold the steering wheel for the first time, right? First, you should get the steering balance. You should understand how accelerator, brake, and clutch works in your car, and then you can think of Formula One, right? I cannot give you a better analogy than this. Okay, anyway, it's still a good question. Probably many of you had that question in your mind. Okay, Debadrita Datta has a question. No. My interest in learning programming, but in which field will it be helpful? As I'm an EC. Okay, Prayash Das says he's from ECE background, but he's taking up this course. Of what use will this course be for him? See, please note, I would say every engineer should know how to program. For example, today I would say anybody, let's say even from sciences background or humanities background, or you name it, even medical sciences for that matter, today is the era of data. You have a whole lot of data, okay? And there are very sophisticated ways in which you can crunch this data and make sense out of it, okay? Now I'm talking about the end result. So if you want to crunch your data, you must know some amount of programming. This some amount of programming is what you understand from C. Right? So the fundamentals of programming is what you understand out of a course like this, programming data structures, algorithms using C, right? So it's definitely indispensable. It will make you very versatile as a ECE person or a mechanical engineer, or I'm not exaggerating, even if you're studying medical science, knowing programming is the way to go. It's like this. It's like asking the same example. Is it important to learn how to drive a car? I'm a carpenter. I'm a milkman. I'm an engineer. I'm a minister. I'm a politician. No matter who you are, you must know how to drive a car to be independent. You see, programming is like that today. Whether you're an engineer or a humanities person or a medical sciences person, programming somehow has become very indispensable, especially today. It was not so some 20 years back. Some 60, 40 years back at least, it was very, very specialized. Very, very few people would program. India probably had some less than a couple of dozen people who would program some 30, 40 years back. That's also because you didn't have a desktop, access to a desktop, let alone desktop. You wouldn't even have touched a computer back then. So you ask your dad or mom, they probably would have seen these machines which were too huge. In the era of valve electronics, there would be vacuum tubes and computers would be so big you didn't have access to it. Today we have access to it, which means most of the problems can be solved on your desktop, which means people will expect you to solve your problems on a desktop, let alone desktop, maybe even a handheld device like mobile phone. There's a whole lot of computing, and you probably may want to write a piece of code, which is probably your own app, probably something that will help you be at your best in your field. Requires good amount of programming knowledge, and it starts from a basic programming language like C, Python, or whatever. So I cannot over exaggerate on the fact that every single engineer should have very good prowess in a programming language. I would say if you understand data structures, programming logic, let's say in a language like C, you're done for a lifetime. You have the basic prerequisites to pick up anything. And if I were to be the CEO of a company, anyone who is good at PDA using C, or any other language for that matter, I would give him a thumbs up and then recruit him without any second questions asked. Okay, perfect. So maybe a few more questions. So Samir says, can you give some idea about how C is working in operating systems? I really don't understand your question very well, but let me tell you something very interesting. See, Windows that you use is an operating system. Unix is also an operating system. When they came out with Unix as an operating system, they wanted some very robust programming language that can be used on top of Unix, in Unix. And they came out with C. You all know the history. If not, maybe there are a lot of documentaries also on how C was made. You can take a look at it. And on C, they realized C has some drawbacks and we should come out with a better programming language. Let me repeat. You have Unix as an operating system. On top of it, you have C. And when they were using C, they realized we need some other programming language on top of C, better than C. And then they came out with C++. And a very interesting and surprising thing is, using C++, they developed a brand new version of Unix. So you see, on Unix, they developed C, using the basics of Unix as a foundation. And then on using C, they developed C++. And C++ gave birth to a new form of Unix. So, so addressing your question, programming language, a good programming language is extremely important, and the right programming language is all the more important. A language that understands human psychology, the ease in which you can code it, and the ease in which you can develop more and more stuff with that as the base, right? So anyways, I got reminded of the story of Unix C++. So I had to give you this little anecdote. Okay, so advice for masters is, Pradyum, it's a question out of the scope. We'll keep it outside. Maybe you can write to me. We can have a separate Skype chat session at the end of this course where we talk about what next. So that what next call will probably be for 2-3 hours duration. I promise we'll have it after your 8th week of the course. We'll talk a whole lot of things on what can you do next, including the next possible courses you can take and fun stuff you can do with advanced programming ideas and stuff like that. Can you allot a project-based component in the course so we can get a good grasp on data structures? So Amay, that's a very nice question. Amay says, can you assign a good project for me? That's a very good question, but it may not be feasible given the current population. So there are 30,000 students who are taking up the course. Project requires some interactive mode where you talk to the advisor on how to go about a few things. You'll get stuck somewhere and you should cross the hurdles. It's not so easy for me to just give you a project and you start doing it and finish it. So you might even get discouraged if I give you something hi-fi and you're unable to do it. So there are several projects out there. Okay, a very favorite project of mine was to display a calendar of a month and a year. I'm sure you all have heard of it. It's today a very standard programming question. So there are many such things that you can be on the lookout for and then try doing it. There are many project ideas available online too. You can take a look at it. Or Amay, you can write to me. I will give you a few ideas, possible ideas that you can work on. Okay, so Aman Kumar talks about compilation steps. So Simran, maybe we can tell our friends to not ask questions about scores and assignments right now. We can always, I have addressed that already. In the first 10 minutes of my talk was only that. I have addressed that already. Maybe we can take it up later. Okay, perfect. So Bharti has a very interesting question, which I had included in my mail that was sent to you all. Can you elaborate testing the program code written? I feel it is as important to know how to debug and test as it is for just to code. Your thoughts on it? Okay, that's a perfect question and a very frequently occurring problem. Let me explain this properly. This is something that everybody should worry about, but most of us don't worry about. So what am I trying to say? Programming is on one side. Troubleshooting the given program is on the other side. That's called debugging. Debugging today is a well-established science. There's a whole lot of engineering that goes behind it. And it's good for you to understand how to use a debugger. So what is a debugger? You have written a program. It's perfect. Syntax-wise perfect. It's executing. It takes an input and gives you the output. But the output is wrong. You see, it is not returning any compilation error. No segmentation fault. Everything is perfect. The output is wrong. Now what do you do in that case? You have written a 1,000 line code. And finally, you realize that there is some bug somewhere. Something has gone wrong somewhere. How do you handle it? I have two quick tips for you. Tip number one is when you have a big project in hand, try to slice it into several parts and try to see what will this part do. Let me give you an example. If you want to make some good halwa, let's say carrot halwa, what you should do, what you need is good quality carrots, of course, goes without saying, it's carrot halwa. You need good carrots, good quality fresh carrots, and you need a lot of ghee and a whole lot of sugar, of course, good quality sugar. If you compromise on any of these three things, you probably will not get the right taste. You should look at, first, what I'll do is I will ensure that I assign to my friend, let's say 4 of us are together preparing carrot halwa, I'll assign my friend to go and get the best carrots in the town. Second friend to go and get the best form of sugar that's both healthy as well as tasty. The third thing is maybe the best possible desi ghee. I'm in Punjab, I get very good desi ghee here, so I need not to worry about it. But then the point is, you see, I need to concentrate on these three departments. Getting the best possible carrot, getting the best possible sugar, good in quality, both for health and taste reasons, and very good quality desi ghee. I assign these three things to these three friends and I forget it. And I say, you guys must specialize in getting me the best possible stuff. Now, take a minute's pause and observe what happened. Once I outsource this problem to these three people, I will not worry about this problem. And all I will worry about is getting these things and then making fantastic carrot halwa. Right? Now, similarly, when you have a code which is 1,000 lines long, it's very difficult to see what has gone wrong where. But then, if you break this 1,000 line code into three parts, you should be able to figure out how to break it. And you take one part and only worry about how to achieve this one part. Analogously speaking, talk to the person who's going and getting the best possible carrot. Tell him, go to this place, pay so much, and check for the quality of carrots this way only, and get it only if it's of good quality. Then you address the problem of carrots separately. Similarly, in your code, you address one part of the problem separately, and then the second part, and then the third part, and then so on. So the advantage here is that you will ensure that, just a minute. You can take it there and then switch off. Okay, sorry. The best part is when you break it into what is called modules, you will only worry about those modules, and any problem within these modules, you will troubleshoot and then come out. Okay, that is modular programming. You sort of break them into even pieces, and you worry only about these pieces. Test it properly, and then go to the next step, number one. Number two, there are ways in which you can find out what is going wrong. You can slowly trace through the program. If you're using Turbo C, they're all available on the menus. If you're using GCC, it is slightly complicated. So you should use some command line parameters, or many IDEs today. Many integrated development environments, they provide this facility. So it depends on what IDE you are using for you to know how to debug a piece of code. But trust me, whatever method you're using, debugging is extremely important. It's a science in itself. You must understand how to do it. I will try to see if I can ask my TAs to conduct a video clip on how you can debug and how you can efficiently code. Anyway, that's a fantastic question which Bharti asked. Good that I was reminded of it, that I could address it. Okay, let me take the next question and maybe a couple more questions before winding up. Simran, thank you, but I'm afraid about getting job. No, jobs later. okay, I can decide what logic to be used, but I'm unable to code. Okay, Rajat Singh is probably saying, Rajat Singh, correct me if I'm wrong. Rajat Singh is saying that I understand the logic, but programming is difficult for me. Don't worry at all. This is very, very common a problem. See, this is like, so you know in and out of what needs to be done, but you don't know how to get started, or you know how to get started, but you don't know how to proceed. These things come with practice. That's why I would switch gears and remind you of what I started off the meeting with. I told you people that start with very basic questions, the basic questions that you create from your mind, and try to answer them as a piece of program. And you will be amazed to see that the questions that your mind comes out with and the answer that you, the way you resolve it will be a lot more fun-filled than taking up a random question and trying to solve it. There you will get discouraged. Your problem seems to be there, Rajat, where you seem to have taken a very hard problem and you have tried thinking of a logic. Maybe you were through, but then when you realized I should code, you were unable to code. So go step by step, one step at a time, one skill at a time, and you'll be able to do really well. You should go really, really slow here. That's the only tip we can give. That's the only thing that works, in fact. Okay, any more questions? Maybe Simran can tell me if there is a frequently asked question which you want me to answer. Simran and Amit, maybe any question that you saw scrolling up which you can remind me of, which you can answer. So, okay. Kisle Kumar is talking about blockchain. So blockchain is completely different, way out of the scope of our current discussion. We'll not talk about it. Although blockchain is a very interesting concept, you can look it up. But I would not want to talk about it right now. Okay, so Bharti is asking again a very nice question. So how do we cultivate logical thinking? Okay, so I will give you people one very, very good advice. There is a nice game online. Just remind me, Simran and Amit, it's called some Swift. Is it called Swift? Okay, so I'll let you know of the exact name of the game. That game is about understanding logical thinking by programming a small turtle-like object. Okay, so you will make the turtle do a few things and you will achieve something at the end. Now, this is the best way to learn logical thinking. Okay, and you will understand what is a for loop, if loop, while loop, right? So programming is all about understanding these loop constructs. For example, I instruct, let's say, I have a dog, well-trained dog, and I must instruct him the following. I have a basket full of balls, and all these balls, he must transfer from this basket to this basket, one ball at a time. Okay. How do I do it? So firstly, assume the dog is a robot dog. Okay, it's a robot. So I should tell the robot, go pick a ball, bring the ball, put the ball into the other basket. Go back again, pick the ball, and put this ball to this basket. Go back again. Now, how long will this be done? What if the basket goes empty? I should have instructed the robot to stop when the bag goes empty. Correct? So what I should do is I should tell the robot this. My dear robot, while the basket is not empty, keep doing the following. Pick the ball and put that into some other basket. Okay? And the robot will now understand that he is saying, pick the ball, put the ball into the next basket, keep doing this until the basket is empty, and the robot will keep doing this. Now then, how exactly to tell this to the robot is the programming language, right? You cannot just like that talk the way I spoke in English right now. You must use the right, while, if, for, etc. loops for it. Okay. So the way you can cultivate logical thinking is actually about trying to solve such problems at a very basic level using this game-like interface, which I'll tell you all. Now that's how I wish I had these interfaces back then when I was high school kid, I would have probably not struggled put years of effort to understand basics of programming. So I'll send you that link. Maybe you can try learning this the fun way. And then in general, cultivating logical thinking is all about, I'll tell you something, even something as tough as doing high-end physics or mathematics, it all comes by patient practice with a lot of confidence. There is no one way to do it. You see how music experts learn. They learn with a lot of practice. When I say practice, it sounds like a very boring term. You know, like everybody says practice. We also have a quote which says, practice makes a man perfect. It's like stating the obvious. But then there is something called your muscle memory. Okay. You have to read this book called The Outliers, a very strongly advised book for you all to read. The book Outliers talks about how if you want to pick up a skill, you need to spend 10,000 hours on this particular skill. Be it learning how to play badminton or be it how to learn violin. They've observed that it's a very well-established psychology result that you need to put forth thousands of hours of effort into it, at least 10,000 hours. Unless you put forth this much of effort, you will not learn. But that said, from first hour to 10,000th hour, you will observe that you are learning at every instance of this time. Every 100 hours, you will see tremendous improvement. So the way I can only tell you what the way I learned and the way I give advice to my students to learn. Beyond all the things that I told you, a very nice way would be to sit with a friend who is as good as you or as bad as you. If I put it this way. Why do I say it this way? You see, people learning chess, they are given one tip. Always play with someone who is just a little better than you. Not very much better than you or very much worse than you. If he's very worse than you, you don't get to learn anything nice. If he's very much better than you, then you will get discouraged. Just learn it, play it with someone who's slightly better than you. Then you will improve incrementally. Similarly, when you're coding, one magic mantra would be to sit with someone and code together so that you both complement each other and you get to learn a whole lot also when you do this. Okay, this probably is a good way to cultivate logical thinking. But trust me, programming is not at all is not any difficult than understanding how to start from a location in your city and going to some other location. If you can do it, you can as well program. The point is enormous amount of practice, knowing exactly how to talk, how to go about instructing your computer. Okay, but the fun part with the computer is once instructed, it runs really very fast. If you tell the computer how to sort a given bunch of numbers, for any given bunch of numbers, it can sort. Right? So that's the fun part. But then cultivating logical thinking comes by practice, comes by collaboration, comes by patient thinking, comes with a lot of confidence, and of course, a whole lot of practice. Remember the 10,000 hour rule? At least for this course, I would say 10,000 is way too much. Some 500 hour rule, I think you should assume. Unless you program for 500 hours, I don't think you can achieve mastery over programming. Okay, so Amit, you have anything else to say? Maybe Amit and Simran can take some questions right now. It's already 3 o'clock, but maybe they can come to the forefront and answer a few questions if you want.
Yeah, sure, sir. So,
go ahead, Amit. I have muted my microphone.
Okay, sure. So one question was there that a lot of people have asked, what is presentation error? So the presentation error is, suppose the expected output is, let's say, yes, without inverted comma, and you are getting yes with a space. So suppose if you do not put presentation or error, so your output will be wrong. So what we have done, we have designed the assignments in such a way that suppose if you are getting yes with a space, then it will say that you have passed the test cases. with ignoring the presentation errors. So you have passed actually. So you should not care about what presentation error is giving. It's not an error. It's just the compiler is ignoring this space and passing your test cases. So you should not care much for that. And a lot of questions on forum is like, why I'm getting 0 marks. So it's not possible to get 0 marks. If you're getting 0 marks, it means that you have not read the FAQ properly. Your logic might be correct, but the way you presenting the outputs might not be correct. So if you just look at the FAQs, there are a lot of details are there. So a lot of questions, a lot of people are facing this question. So what we are trying to do, we might send a video explaining how to program, how to submit an assignment, and what else are required to get good marks. And one important thing is that these assignments were very simple. For first 3 weeks, assignments were very simple actually. So upcoming assignments will be very difficult, a little bit difficult. So you should take care of this, and please read the FAQ properly before submitting the assignments. And suppose the assignments deadline is 2 weeks after, let's say I post this assignment today and the deadline is 2 weeks after, let's say from now. So you should take care that you should start the assignment from now only, so that you will not face any problem. And if you are facing any problem in between, you should post it on forum that, okay, there is some ambiguity, I'm not able to understand what the statement says, so that we will be able to help you. If you're posting it one day, might not be able to help you. So it is very important to start the assignment before. That's all I have to say. These are the main problems which all students are facing. We'll look at it once more again. Simran, if you have to say something, please. I'm switching off my mic.
Okay, Simran, do you have anything to say? I think we cannot hear you. Anyways, it's okay. If there's anything else, we can always talk later. So it was fun talking with you all. We'll have more of these sessions later, maybe more specialized sessions where I can even show you some technical stuff if there's any popular demand for one particular concept. But otherwise, it will be nice if we are organized in the sense that you all ask me your questions beforehand, and we'll only stick to those questions. Okay, and in and around those questions, we'll have more discussions. Okay, yeah, perfect. So I like the session today. We'll have more of it very soon. Thanks to the NPTEL team. Thanks to my TAs. Thanks to all of you. Bye-bye.